Good morning, everyone. Close your eyes with me. Imagine you're in your apartment. It's nighttime. Suddenly, pounding at the door. You open your eyes, you think, kids. You hear some screams, some shouts, kids. But wait a minute, what time is it? You look at the clock beside your bed, 1:30 a.m., and then you listen a little more closely. That's not kids. Those are adults. What's going on? You get up out of bed, you go to the door of your apartment, you open it, and you see smoke in the hallway, and the only thing you can think about is, get out. As you walk out to the street from your apartment building, it's you and 200 of your neighbors, and you look up behind you and you see the building in flames, smoke pouring out. The Cottage Avenue fire took place in November of last year in Mount Vernon, New York. The fire department extinguished the fire with 4.5 million gallons of water after the fire had spread in this pre-war building through the cockloft, resulting in a total evacuation of the building. Residents were not able to return. This is the story of the longest congregate shelter operation in this region since Superstorm Sandy, as told by the people who were there. I'm going to speak with each of the panel members. As we go through this operation, I'll have them introduce themselves. I want to start with Mike Montes. Take us back to 2 a.m. that morning.
Well, first and foremost, thank you to the Red Cross and thank you to everyone being here to hear the story from that day. Again, my name is Director Mike Montes from the Office of Emergency Management. I have the pleasure of working for our dear Mayor Shawyn Patterson Howard. 2:39 a.m. was one of the most, interesting moments in my time that I've been working in OEM for Mount Vernon in 3 years. And, responding to the scene, it was one of those situations where, we're thinking it's just a, one alarm. We see a small little fire just happening in that, one specific apartment room. And within minutes, things just escalated as time went on. So it was a very interesting and very speedy process.
Mike, when you got to the scene, what were your first impressions? And what did you think, what do I need to start doing?
Well, the initial is making sure that we have all of the residents out of the building. Working closely with the fire department, working closely with our police department to secure locations throughout the city where we can house them temporarily, so that way we do a full accountability of all of our constituents at that location. So it was a challenge. It was a challenge that, we, myself and a lot of the leaders that were on the scene had to, kind of really gravitate to it, because we have over 260 constituents that lived in that building that are literally scattered throughout different parts of the neighborhood. That's just going through a real shocker. So that was one of the most challenging first 2-3 hours of our time at the scene.
And when did you notice Red Cross on the scene?
Let me explain something to you. When that call goes into the ECC, it is within minutes. If I don't call, my fire alarm bureau will call. It's like a tag team, and literally within about 30 to 45 minutes, your teams were there. We were strategizing. We were, really, it was a gears on once we realized that the situation was escalating rapidly, quickly.
Thank you. Mary, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mary Davis, and I'm the Disaster Action Team Supervisor. We're the ground team. My partner, Matt, appeared first, I think, down at the fire scene. And very quickly, Mike and Mayor Shawyn Patterson opened up the Dole Center and arranged busing, right? You arranged buses of people, bringing everybody over. So I was on with maybe about 5 people that night as people were pouring in. Mike, we thought originally it was just in one part of the building, only 17 apartments. I think that's when it thought that was, but it was a big building and it had continued to spread, which So we, as the people were all coming in, we were getting their contact information. We were finding out if they had a temporary place, if they had emergency needs that needed to be addressed, medication that had to be taken right away. We actually gave out dozens of missed work letters because people need proof right away. There was breakfast set up, hot breakfast delivered by the city. We had Red Cross had our breakfast, but then the hot breakfast came a couple hours after that. And a lot of coffee and other issues. People not, they just ran out with whatever they had, and trapped animals. And so they were worried about, and so I would escalate things generally to you, Mike, but sometimes the city was all over problem solving. It was a difficult situation, but I think everybody had their eyes on what do these people need right away. And so 28 animals, by the way, and you guys had set up 2 rooms right away that people could be with their animals in this reception center.
And Mary, was there a focusing moment in those early hours of the operation that defined the partnership between Red Cross and the city here?
I would say hot breakfast. It was my first introduction to the fabulous, fabulous food that I learned about from Mount Vernon that places, well, she'll tell the story, but I think some were donated and some were purchased by the city. Yes, I think it was also when I started to ask for some clothing, and then it started to become a lot of clothing coming in. And then I was a little worried about this when the mayor assured me that, don't worry, we know how to take care of everything. We know how to come together as a community and, encourage your the residents to take what they needed. And if there's something that's not here, let us know. It was beautiful.
Thank you, Mary. Mayor, would you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. Shawyn Patterson Howard, Mayor of Mount Vernon. Actually became mayor 2 months before COVID hit, right? And so I think that helps to inform my leadership. And so, of course, I always get the alert from Red Alert that there is a structure fire, and I got that at 2:39. At about 2:45, I was on the phone with my fire commissioner, and he was like, Mayor, yeah, no need for you to come. It's good. He called back at 2:49 and said, Mayor, we might be going to a second alarm. And I said, I'm coming. And when I got there, I think we hadn't hit the third alarm yet, but as we said, it started as what we felt was a kitchen fire on the 7th floor in the corner. And it's a 7-story building, pre-war H-built style building. And so it's quite a large building. It has 3 different addresses: Park Avenue, Cottage Avenue, and Sydney Avenue. No one uses Sydney Avenue because that's on the side of the building, but that's just how big the building is. And so initially, we thought it was contained to just a small part of the building, but this is an older building, not necessarily well maintained, right? And so once it went up the wall and it hit the cockloft, game over, right? Game over. And it became something very different. And so when I got there, I checked in with our incident command at fire, checked in with Mike, went around and started speaking to a lot of the residents. And when you're in a small community, you happen to know them. And so some of them I went to church with, some of them I went to school with. I knew their children, I knew their parents. People were crying, some were praying, people weren't sure what was going to happen. But when we saw the fire really move in a different way, we said, yeah, guys, this is not going to go well. We immediately needed to find a place to gather them, so we brought them over to the lobby of one of the apartment buildings across the street and gathered them, and that's when the yellow sheets came out from the Red Cross. And of course, we're like, everyone, please fill out the yellow sheets before you leave, before you find shelter with family. Fill this out because this is the way that we're going to communicate with you. And we realized we had also a large Spanish-speaking population. And that was, it was not just difficult because they were Spanish speaking, but there might be a lot who were undocumented. And so as you have police, as you have fire, as you have the mayor, as you have red, white, and blue lights everywhere, people were visibly and understandably quite nervous. And when we spoke about transporting them to another site, the Dole Center, which is our community center, they were nervous, but we established trust really quickly. We, Red Cross spoke, the city spoke, we had translators, and we pulled people to the side and let them know, we are not here to hurt you. We are here to help you. Don't worry about anything else. And it took a while for some of those families to come forward and say, well, I need to go wherever you're going next. And by the time they did it, the recreation department vehicles were gone. The only thing that we had left were police transport vans. So convincing people who are Spanish speaking, convincing people who may be undocumented to get into a police van to go to the next place took a bit, but again, we were establishing trust, and they got in and they went. And we were on the phone, I think, calling pastors. We have text message groups of like 20 pastors in each group, because your text message group can't be bigger than 20, right? And so I have multiple texts of different pastors, and immediately, look, we have a fire, we're going to have this number of people displaced. Before you hit your pulpit, please bring water, bring juice, bring diapers, bring gift cards, bring money, whatever it is that you have. If you have food, bring food, stop by the store. And by the time we got to the Dole Center, pastors, not their deacons, but pastors were rolling in there before 7:30 a.m. service, dragging things behind them. And so there was an immediate response.
Mike, tell us about the decision to the moment, I guess, that you realized the Dole Center is not going to cut it for this, that this is bigger than that, and we need to look at next steps.
Yeah, it was a quick and decisive decision that was made. Once we knew that second alarm rapidly went and escalated to that third, and then really quickly to that fourth, we already knew that we were going to face a major disaster that escalated. And I remember very clearly, and I looked at the mayor on the scene, and I said, Mayor, it's game on. We're gonna have to pitch in and use our partnerships and just really go outside of our normal operations. And that really included getting our partners at the Mount Vernon School District, who had 3 vacant schools throughout the city, and immediately sprung to my head proximity, distance. We knew that there was an elementary school that a lot of the kids from that building fire went to, which was Lincoln School. And a couple blocks down, we knew that Home School was a vacant school. So immediately I told the mayor, I think our best choice right now is to go with Holmes. And she was like, do what you gotta do. And immediately called the superintendent, I remember, at 6:35 in the morning. Which never happens unless something like this happens. And he immediately said, whatever you need and whatever the mayor and the city needs, we are there for you. What do you need? And I said, I need that school open. That school was down for about 8 to 9 months, about 8 months since that time, right? About 3 months, 4 months. But I say that to say that the partnership that it required and the relationship building that it required to establish that, and to the mayor's point about gaining the trust of our partners, that we're going to be able to, execute our plans and strategically do it with our external partners as well. And I think that was a pivotal moment on, executive decision making. And when you have a mayor like Mayor Shawyn Patterson Howard that really empowers her, this is really serious, that empowers her leaders and on her executive team to do what they have to do. I think, operationally, it becomes an easy sale.
Thank you. Sharon, would you introduce yourself?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Sharon Zukerman. I am a couple of things. I'm a volunteer, mass care, sheltering, and I also do DAT, which is Disaster Action Team, which we go to the scenes. I'm also an RC care worker, which means I actually follow up after the fact and help them through the process of finding a new place or engaging with other community partners. So it's been very, this whole thing, this DRO, which we call it, was very life-changing, I would say. People were so grateful that they had community and the Red Cross and people that cared, especially the people in the shelter, because those people didn't have anywhere else to go and they had no one else to turn to. And those people were in the shelter for a very long time, like from 11/23 till January 2nd when they were forced out. So it was a long process of recovery care where we were searching and, trying to find places for them to live. And then once you find a place for them to live, then you need furniture, you need clothes, you need everything. And these people had families in there. And it became very, I wouldn't say stressful. I would say it was actually very invigorating because these people were so grateful. That was the one thing. They were so grateful for everything. They just couldn't stop blessing me. I have a million blessings for the rest of my life. And they were just bless you, you're, and I'm I'm done. I'm so good, because they're just so grateful. So it was a really an amazing, it was a horrible thing that happened, but what came out of it was so amazing, how everyone worked together to make this, these people feel like we care, and that was really important. So
Sharon, let me take you back to the early days of this
Okay.
operation. Once you started talking to the clients, what became clear would be the challenges for their recovery in this operation?
The biggest challenge was housing. That was the biggest challenge. We were on a race, against the clock to get them out of there and in a place that was safe for them to live, especially the people with little kids. And everyone, there's people with dogs, there's people with rabbits. They had everything, turtles, birds, everything. And they were kept together, which was really nice. And DSS was a process, and, everything is a process. And I think that was challenging because people didn't speak English. So it was, and the funny thing is that most of them were documented, but they still don't speak English. So it was very challenging because they didn't understand the process. They didn't understand the paperwork. They didn't understand, they had to miss work to get on lines to do certain things. And even because it's such a tragedy that happened, it's such a shock to them that they don't forget. They forget actually that there was $1,000 that the mayor was giving. I had to keep reminding them, once you sign your lease, don't forget, you have to go to the mayor's office and get your $1,000. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I'm how do you forget about $1,000? It was just, a constant, okay, well, did you do this? Did you do that? That's the challenging part. And keeping their spirits high, just keeping hope in their hearts.
Thank you, Sharon. Mayor, take me back to those first days after the shelter opened, where it came time to have a meeting with the affected neighbors, and you led that meeting. Tell me, what was your message to those neighbors who were affected by this disaster in terms of what government's role would be in their recovery?
So just to give you context, while I am mayor now, I am a licensed social worker. I was a CEO of the YMCA for 16 years. My YMCA served as a shelter site for Red Cross staff during Hurricane Sandy. I'm a former Red Cross volunteer, and so this wasn't new. Right? We've had smaller disasters, and we worked through COVID. And I think as the leader of the city, I understand my convening power. And if you want to change the slide, if you want to advance the slide, because I think, there's a lot of things in here that can be instructive, because I kept hearing, this is really different. Okay, you can move it forward. Right. So we had, this was a systems test. This was a systems test for our city around housing, around human services, around crisis response, and how were we going to handle this? And we had to shift from incident response, fire, OEM, police, EMS, and really activate our ecosystem. And so while it says 200 volunteers, it's probably more like over 350 between the two sites. I think we just put in what was at one site and we didn't count the other site. OEM was always in charge. While I'm the mayor and I convene, OEM still has that responsibility for pulling together all of our public safety as well as our public health partners. We activated the faith-based organizations, civic organizations, businesses, all of our city agencies, and our Recreation, Youth Bureau, Office of the Aging, and Office of Veterans serve as the human services arm for the city of Mount Vernon. And even in our police department, we have what we call a wellness division, a wellness precinct, where we deal with the youth, mentally ill, chemically addicted, seniors, domestic violence, formerly incarcerated, unhoused, and those who are autistic and maybe neurodivergent, to make sure that we have a proper response. And everything we do through our police department is co-response. In the fire department, we have our community multiple integrated health paramedicine program. And so there's a lot of case management there. So we operate a little bit differently, knowing that you have a lot of people in our community with social and medical fragility, right? And then financially challenged. We have to operate differently. And so for that first meeting, we pulled in DSS. The people who I was a case manager with 30 years ago are now the commissioner of lots of the agencies across the county. And so I was able to call the commissioner of the Department of Social Services, the county executive, and say, we're going to need DSS's help. We know that many of these families are not eligible for public assistance regularly, but this is a crisis. And they were like, well, what are you going to need? I said, first month's rent, security deposit, and a broker's fee. Well, Shawyn, that's a lot. Well, I need it, right? I said, because if you don't give this to me, then you're going to pay $100 a day for each of these families to live in a shelter, and you don't have that ability. It's going to break the homeless system because it was getting cold and the system was full. And it was like, well, you're right. I said, I know. So we'll see you at this meeting. And so literally, while the fire rang out early on a Sunday morning, by Monday night, we had the Department of Social Services, Community Mental Health, the school district, of course, Red Cross, the city agencies. We had come together and we held a meeting and we let them know what we would be able to do. Because the first thing that people want information. Of course, they want food, clothing, and shelter, but they need information. What is next? Are we going to have to navigate this by ourselves? We brought in real estate brokers, landlords, social service agencies, and we just showed them that there was an ecosystem of people ready to provide support. And so we kind of bifurcated the response. You have your regular public safety response, but we also immediately activated the human services ecosystem. And then the conversation we had with Red Cross is, this has to be a joint command, right? This is going to be too big, and we know typically it's a 3-day operation. We said, we're going to need more. We're going to need much more than this, and we're willing to do what we have to do on the city side to help convince you to stay, right? We knew that we could not do it on our own, and we also knew we could not expect Red Cross to do. So how were we going to do it together? How were we going to share data? And how were we going to make this teamwork from the beginning? So we called a town hall meeting for Monday night. I believe at about 7 o'clock, we called the town hall meeting. But for 5 o'clock in City Hall, we called a meeting. We just put text messages out to partners, and they came together. 75 different partners showed up at City Hall for a meeting to help us, and we gave them all assignments. Get us gift cards, raise money, get clothing, get food, start looking for apartments. These are the things that we need you to do. So we just activated our team.
And Mayor, before we get to the gentleman at your right there, I want to ask a question. Here in the Red Cross, we often talk about blue sky, gray sky roles, or steady state and responding roles. And we see that play out all the time when we have operations. I've never seen it quite as significant in city government, where the city of Mount Vernon mobilized its departments from typical roles into responding roles. Can you tell me about that? And what is the mobile mayor's office?
It was made up in the moment, right? It was made up in the moment. So like I said, we went through COVID, and who knew in March of 2020 that COVID was going to be such a huge incident. We, as a city hall, we reopened quicker than any city hall in the region, right? Again, because we decided to do a human services lens and work public health and public safety. I explained to people are inextricably intertwined. And then they also undergird economic development, right? And so if the community's not safe, it's not healthy, then money is not to be made. So all of those things have to work together. And we just appealed to them. The mobile mayor's office emerged at the shelter, and it's because I told my staff it was like all hands on deck. This is an emergency. City Hall is where basic business is done, but Kendra David here is my deputy chief of staff, and she was there along with my chief of staff, my administrative assistant, my executive assistant, Director Montes, the director of Office for Aging, the director of Veterans Affairs, the director of the Office of Neighborhood, Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and our director of Constituent Services. And so they everyone just floated over to homes, and I guess they needed a place to convene. The Red Cross had their office. There was a medical office. The CERT team, Community Emergency Response Team, had their office, and they went into one of the old kindergarten classrooms, and they created the mobile mayor's office. And so I showed up that night, and there was a sign on the door that said mobile mayor's office, and I said, oh well, that's now a thing, right? And they really just coordinated the efforts, whether it was food, clothing. They pulled in the director, the commissioner of recreation, who pulled in our director of nutrition. Mount Vernon has a huge nutrition program, whether it is the pantries, whether it is the home delivered meals, whether it is the congregate care meals for our senior centers. So again, we have a large human services arm that operates regularly within the city, and so that was very, very helpful.
Thank you, Mayor. Darnell, would you introduce yourself to the group? You've been so patient. Thank you.
No problem. Good morning, everyone. My name is Darnell Liburd, and during this response, I wore two hats. One as a founder of my nonprofit, Darnell Cares Incorporated, as well as a member of the Young Professionals of Mount Vernon, who the mayor actually called on to help. So during my experience at first the Dole Center, it was a shock for me. Growing up, I'm a Bronx resident, but I live on the cusp of Mount Vernon. The end of my block starts Mount Vernon. So these people are family to me. So as soon as I walk into the Dole Center, it just looks like chaos because everyone is still in that shock, right? But I understood that this was going to be all hands on deck, as the mayor alluded to. So I actually had plans to go to a Friendsgiving that day, but I just couldn't attend, right? It was the week before Thanksgiving, and there are 100 families who are without shelter, food at that time, and then clothing. But that all suddenly changed as churches, as the mayor stated, poured in with food, clothes, Pampers, and the likes. And we instantly became a family. And these 100 families were near and dear to me because I work a full-time job in the development space around fundraising as well. So I understand that passion on both sides of running a nonprofit as well as my 9 to 5, that these families need help. So from November till January, I was there pretty much every day. Spent Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's there because I was dedicated to the mission to helping these families, come out better on the other side. And
were you there every day, or were you there almost every day, all day?
Every day, all day. So we started early in the morning with breakfast around 6:30, lunch, around 1, and then dinner closer to 5. So helping set up the meals as well as making sure that our shelves were stocked. As you can see on the slide and a presentation that will be sent to you, CVS, Walgreens, any Target had nothing on homeschool. We had everything you can think of relatively available for our residents, and we didn't run out of everything. So I appreciate Mount Vernon coming together in conjunction with the Red Cross to be a part of this effort.
Take me through the second floor of what Holmes Elementary looked like.
Yes.
It was like a shopping mall up there, wasn't it? Tell me about that.
So you'll probably walk up, let's say, a flight and a half of stairs, and immediately to your right, there was a large half auditorium full of donated clothes. Every seat was organized from childhood clothing to young adult to adult. Anything you were looking for, from dress clothes to casual pajamas even. And then you'll make your way right out that room and to the left, you'll walk down a hallway, and we had clothes on desks that were sorted by gender, age, size, and then you'll continue to the end of that hall. It was a boutique. They called it the boutique. Now it had hours. Yes, it had hours, functionally running, and well operated. So walking you through, so we were at the boutique, and once you turn inside, there are clothing racks galore of everything you can imagine. And then in that back room, as we use as additional storage, that goes to the CVS that the mayor alluded to, everything you can think of. And then throughout that hallway on the entire second floor, there was nothing but clothing for you to choose from. And the residents really appreciated that because, as the mayor stated, they came in, most of them, with nothing. So it was oftentimes, before we received a lot of those donations, I was able to gather clothing through my network to actually hand out to some of the residents. One of the residents in particular, there was a large family of 6, and one of the young gentlemen went to Catholic school, and just dating back to my time, I went to Catholic high school, and he needs khakis, he needs a dress shirt, he needs a book bag, he needs shoes. So he happened to wear my size, and it all worked out. So he had a book bag, he had shoes, he had khakis. So it was just welcoming and warming, and I'm glad to be a part of this. I know I mentioned to you and Brandon that I would do this all over again. I would have wanted to happen all over again, but you guys know what I'm alluding to, that I'm glad that I was being able to help.
Yes, indeed. Mary, from Red Cross's point of view, take us through what that shelter looked like. What was Red Cross doing in Holmes Elementary?
Well, because there was such a large shelter population, they immediately decided, and it was a very traumatic response, with not only people losing everything, but many of their family members were also affected in other apartments in the building. So the people that they would normally go to were as much. So immediately they figured out, I think 7 dorm rooms. You could be assigned to 7 different rooms. So there was, some had animals, some not, some multiple family units that knew each other. We had to pay attention to security issues. We had to get in showers. So there was a shower unit that then also came in. There needed to be places where we would meet with individuals individually. We, each family representative, we opened up cases, and that they got, a few days in, they immediately got some funds to help with their immediate needs. And then we also discussed all their other issues and things that maybe hadn't come out in the day or two when we were circulating. I think for us, what's important is its physical needs, emotional needs, and informational needs. So our eyes had to be on that at all times. Is someone not talking? What is going on? A few situations, for different reasons, people left the shelter. Some had a surgery they had to go to pre-scheduled. Others had a situation that all the stress was bringing on to them. So we were all on between well, Brandon was our shelter chief, mass care chief, and he knows better. But I as a shelter worker, that's what I was sensitive about. There were the people that were staying there, but there were also the other families that were doubled up with friends and so forth, and they were coming in daily for meals, resources, to meet with a mental health counselor, to meet with a health services person that could help with replacements. If you lose your glasses, you can't see, to be able to write, to be able to do anything. Replacements of phones, there was a lot of things.
Thank you. Mayor, please.
So the other part of the second floor, having a school, having a location that you could never wish for, turned out to be amazing. There were those 7 larger rooms that people used for dorming, but we also had 2 more rooms down near the main office where people who needed a single space, maybe for mental and emotional health, other traumas, had their own individual separate dorm spaces. You had the nurse's office, you had the intake office, you had the Red Cross staff room, the mayor's mobile office. As Darnell said, upstairs, the sorting room, the boutique, the CVS, but we also had an after-school room. So the Mount Vernon Federation of Teachers and the administrators came together, and they made sure that that room was stocked. It had books, it had after-school fun things, and they came over sometime, and they staffed it and did arts and craft with the kids. We had the Youth Bureau and others come in and work with the kids, because we had about 20 kids there at one time. And then it pulled back, but you still always had probably about 15. So you had quite a few young people, at least under the age of 12, that were there. So you had to have something for them to do. The school district set up a computer lab where the parents or the kids could do homework, but they could also look for housing and have internet connection beyond just their phones, so that they could look for housing, look for services. Some of them look for jobs, whatever it is that they needed to do. And then there was another counseling room upstairs, like you said, where the trauma and the mental health counseling could be done. So we created a small city, a small village, but most importantly, community was created. And that was really, really important. And community can be a good thing, and community could be a bad thing, right? You know, it started off very grateful, but then some of the gossip starts when more people find housing, or if someone thinks someone got more gift cards than they got and didn't understand the system. So those were things that we had to always balance. We're like, okay, when are we going from gratefulness to now entitlement, and how do we shift and start to deal with some of the kind of social things that we're starting to develop? But one of the most powerful, I think, boundaries that was created that allowed this shelter to operate with such great dignity from the onset is Red Cross had the rule that there was no media allowed in the building. And when I tell you ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, Pix, News 12, Telemundo, and Univision, I mean, this was a huge story. You had about 8 or 9 media outlets that wanted to be there daily. They wanted updates. They wanted to talk. They wanted to come in. But we wanted to make sure that they were not seen as victims, but they were survivors, that they had agency, and that there was resilience. And we wanted to keep the focus on how they were going to move forward, not just having stories all over the news of how devastated they were and having fire victims crying, because that would have set a different tone in the shelter, that would have set a different tone in the community. And because we were able to work with Red Cross to really manage the media, the information that was given out was very productive, very hopeful, very forward thinking. And I think that's what caused so many people to come in and volunteer, donate time, treasure, talent to help the people move forward and go from crisis to stabilization and to what's next.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, from your perspective, what do you look for from the Red Cross? What does Red Cross bring to the table in a response like this?
You know, in a crisis like this, when Red Cross gets to the scene, I look for Red Cross to be that backbone, to be that support staff to me, you know, because there's a lot of leaning in that it requires. And Mary and I work on a lot of these cases because Mary, I look at Mary and Mary looking at me like, we got this, right? I'm gonna need you to put an office, right? I'm gonna have to put an office right in my emergency operations center that says Mary Davis, because and that's not only because of responding to the fires, but because of the relationship building that Mary and I have. She knows when I'm under stress. I know when she's under stress, and when things are getting a little bit complex. So when you can bounce off of each other as partners, it makes the crises a whole lot better. So I'm always grateful for the amazing partnership, and I always look forward to having my Red Cross partner there, whether it's Mary or any of our responders.
Thank you for that. Darnell, when we look at how Mount Vernon mobilized as a community to wrap itself around these affected neighbors, Mount Vernon is not it's not the most affluent city in Westchester. It's a relatively big city in Westchester, and yet we saw really an incredible embracing by this by the town of Mount Vernon of these affected people. What was what is it about Mount Vernon that was able to generate that magic in this operation?
Yeah, great question, Brandon. I will say Mount Vernon is 4 square miles, which I always heard growing up. So you can walk from one end to the other in no time. But what I will say is that community will probably be the number one word that comes to mind. Every business, restaurant, establishment, nonprofit were all hands on deck to help out, right? There hasn't been a day from November till January 2nd where we did not have food. So I want to give a shout out to Sade, who's the nutritionist in Mount Vernon. She helped coordinate with my team as well as the mobile mayor's office to ensure that the residents were fed breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if Nick was here in the room, he would say that like he's never seen anything like it. This was the best of the best. One day it was Italian, next was soul food. We had a mobile grill outside. So we had fresh chicken, meat, hot dogs, and hamburgers. The brisket, the kids loved it. So I love to see that the community came together, and outside of Red Cross providing water, coffee, and the likes, there was so much food. So thankfully we were in a school, so we were able to utilize their spaces and the refrigerators downstairs and the deep freezers. The students had fresh vegetables and fruits in the morning to go to school, cereal boxes from here to the wazoo. I can't even explain it. So it was very big on community, and everyone came together. Whatever their political beliefs were, political aspirations, that did not matter. Everyone were boots on the ground and ready to help. We had firefighters, police officers come in to volunteer their time and services. And as I mentioned, us being there every day, we help the students with homework, activities on the weekend. We had a mobile RV video game van outside. I don't think it has been an experience like this where the kids were active all the time. And did I mention that, there was a singles area that was housed in the gym. So the students were able to play basketball. They were able to, have a blast, literally. So, and then go back to their room, which was just down the hall. So, and everyone was family oriented there. I will say, I got to learn some Spanish while I was there, held a rabbit, birds, walked the dog. We had a shelter baby that I would say, his name was Mateo. Everyone loved him. I wish we had a picture of him here, but he was passed around. If his mom wanted some time to herself, or needed to take a nap, he might have been in the mobile office, he might have been in the kitchen, he might have been in the gym, but we all looked out for him. And Mateo may be walking now. So I'm excited to see his growth. And what I will say is that being a part of the community in Mount Vernon, to your point, I've seen many of these faces volunteering at a local food pantry, which is actually right across the street from their building. And I didn't know these individuals prior to the fire. But now that they're in their new apartments and I'm still volunteering at this food pantry, seeing them and hearing their updates, I got an apartment, or the kids are doing great, or they're showing me pictures on their phone, that's that's my feel. Like, that brings so much joy to my heart, to know that these people are doing well, and whatever occurred to them in November is behind them now.
Put on the VR headset for a moment for us and take us inside the cafeteria, the dining room across. What are you seeing? What's the feeling there?
So as soon as you walk in, I'll probably say anywhere from 10 to 12 rectangle tables lined up for them to eat. To my immediate right, we had our grab and go snacks. So maybe some fruits, apples, bananas, oranges, granola bars. Right to the left of that, we had coffee and tea fully stocked. And then think of the largest library bookshelf you can think of going all around. And each shelf had snacks on it, and a variety of snacks. As the panel stated, it was a very diverse population. So we had snacks from, different countries, different backgrounds that were donated for these individuals. So there was something for everyone, right? And it never ran low. And if it did, we had a plethora of items to supply along that. And it was a great place to, hold a quick meeting. Gift cards were distributed there. It was just a local hangout spot. When students come in from school, they can grab a bite to eat, hang out, and just decompress. And it was a great time. So, the students that, went to school there, and the mayor didn't mention this, but everyone was accounted for. The students had a ride to and from school. There were young adults who were either looking for, jobs or had questions about just life, and we were able to help. So being a part of the young professionals and, teaming up with the Red Cross, it was very near and dear to my heart, because I'll leave you all with this. I never wanted for anything in my life. So to see this many families want, I just knew I had to be a part of it, right? So I've unofficially volunteered with the Red Cross in the past. So, speaking to Brandon and Nick, I'm officially a DAT volunteer now. So I'm excited about that. My first ride along is actually on Friday, so I'm excited about that. Hopefully I'll get my vest and ID card, so I'll be seeing you soon. But that just speaks to the impact in the community that we had and how supportive Mount Vernon was to just me. I became an employee for 3 months. Everyone's like, "Oh, where do you work in the city? I've never seen you before." But, I was always there to help, and, glad that I was there to do so.
Mayor, we talk in the Red Cross about responses need to be community-based. And I think a lot of us in the organization felt that this was just an exemplary response for a community-based, grassroots, and whole of government, whole of community response to this disaster for these clients. How do we replicate this? What would you advise other communities in Westchester for how to make this happen there? And I think we have a slide on this too. There it is.
So there we go. So activate with dual command. Like we said, it's the incident command of the public safety, but then immediately activate, especially for a larger response, a human services team. So we had our human service navigators, but we also had our housing navigators. And that was very important to make sure that we could rehouse people. Convene with authority. See if you can get the mayor or the CEO of whatever major corporation is in that city, because they give the marching orders, and mostly, people fall in line. They'll fall in love and they'll fall in line at the same time with what you're doing. Centralizing the data early is critical. We didn't have control of Everbridge, but they shared the information as they got permission from the residents to share the information with the city. That allowed us to have a joint data area and focus so that we could make sure that we weren't replicating services. We also created and used technology. Having a lot of young professionals around me is really, really great, right? You have to activate them because they created a Google Sheets document, which allowed us to get further information. I see you smiling, right? That it allowed us to get further information around what size bedroom, apartment do you need? How many bedrooms? What can you afford? And that was the difference. This was a rent-controlled building. a rent-controlled building did not mean that everyone was poor. It just meant that they had low rent. And so people would say, well, I pay $1,500 a month for rent. What can you pay? And we established that earlier. I said, I don't want to hear what you paid. I want to know what you can pay, because that's going to make a real difference in what you can do. You had some people making up to $250,000 a year in that building, and you had other people in the building who probably made $45,000 to $60,000 a year. And so there was a wide breadth of financial capacity in that building. You had nurses, you had apartments where the mother was a nurse, the daughter was the nurse, and the son worked for like the MTA. But why would you move out of a big, beautiful pre-war building with huge rooms? One woman said, I have 9 windows, right? In her apartment, but that's real. And so why would you move out that if you didn't have to? Stabilizing with dignity. And that's what we really, really focused on doing. Again, we didn't want this to stay chaotic and stay crisis driven. They had clothes on the table by noon. It looked like David's bridal bum rush of trying to find dresses, we know, when we were there. But by the time we moved over and the Red Cross stood up the shelter, it was able to have a different atmosphere. We got them showers that night. We have a stadium, and so we used the recreation department to transport them to take showers. And then within the next day or two, we had the shower bank, power in a shower over there so people could take showers. We gave away gift cards immediately. One of our CPR foundation that works with the police department, he was coming down to buy hams and turkeys for Thanksgiving. He says, meet me at Target. I'll buy $5,000 in gift cards, right? So immediately we started giving out the gift cards, because buying your own underwear matters. Right? You can take a lot of donated things, but the things that are right against your body, you want them to be new. And we understood that, right? You want them to be new. And so we tried to, again, do everything we could to give them dignity. And within 36 hours of them being in the shelter, since it was a Sunday, by that night, Monday evening, we had the county there working with us and having the conversations around housing. We're not trying to keep you here forever. We're not trying to put you in shelters. There are no shelters really to put you in. So how can we get you into housing? And that was important. If you can go to the next slide, and I'm going to, because I know we have to wrap up. But disaster is a housing system stress test, right? Because you're dealing with fires and you're dealing with floods. So you're testing the housing system within any community, and how do you rally around that? And then the Red Cross is an ecosystem integrator. So the Red Cross has to become a part of the ecosystem within your city and help to drive that and not be separate. And the Red Cross has always done that. And then moving from reactive relief to structured resilience. And like I said, that was part of the dignity. If we can have the next slide, I'm going to run through these quickly. And like I said, by positioning City Hall as the table where solutions were designed and not just announced to the community, we accelerated the collective impact. And I don't know if you teach the collective impact model here, but that is a very good model to use as a framework for your Red Cross work. Government didn't operate alone. Philanthropy didn't operate independently. Faith institutions were immediately integrated. Civic involvement was not ceremonial. It wasn't about the selfies and wearing your fraternity, sorority, or your neighborhood association shirts. You were working. Businesses and agencies stood up themselves as donation hubs. Because we were like, we can't take anything else. They were like, well, we'll take them at the Fleetwood Bakery, and at the youth shelter we'll take. And they brought their customers, brought things to those businesses in their local neighborhoods. Residents were treated as partners. We made data-informed decisions. I spoke to Brian every morning at god-awful hours because I was up. And I said, how many did we have last night? Are the numbers going up? Are they going down? Are new people coming in, right? We wanted to keep an eye on the numbers so we knew what to do. And communication was unified. It was dignified. And I always say that necessity is the mother of invention or innovation. And when you're coming from an end-resource community, you have to have partners always. And so we believe in partnership from the beginning. You can't wait for the smoke to show in the air to develop relationships. If you have relationships in place before there's ever smoke in the air, that is going to make it different. And advanced collaboration makes success possible, but partnership makes it replicable, right? And so it can't be ceremonial. You can't use people, you have to utilize them. And the only way you can utilize them if you've done some type of mapping of resources in the area. So communities, I would encourage you as you go to communities, not for the disaster, but before the disaster, say, have you done a community mapping? Do you know what agencies are here? What would a partnership look like if there were a disaster to happen in your community? And how could you activate and stand that up for a major disaster, whether it's a fire, whether it's a flood? Because I know you respond to both. And then the last piece is, when the smoke clears, systems remain, right? And so you don't just stand it up for the crisis, but you perfect it each time that there is a response to a crisis. So we don't just organize out of necessity, but we build resilience and we look to replicate alignment. And so, hopefully we can provide and support you with some tools, because I think we learned a lot through this. I think, again, COVID taught us a lot, and we're going to continue to build, right? Because it's layered. It's not, crises don't just happen once. Of this magnitude, hopefully we don't have this again for a long time. This is the first 5-alarm fire we've had in 40 years. And the last time it was a factory or something. It was an apartment building. So this is I have people in my fire department who've been there 38 years, and they said they've never seen anything like this before. But we'd never seen COVID before. And the 100-year floods are now happening like twice a summer. So we have to prepare for more disasters and more acute disasters. So I don't think disasters are going away. I think they might become a little bit more frequent. And how will we prepare in advance for the disaster as opposed to just react to the disaster? And I just thank you. Thank the Red Cross. Thank you. And thank you for trusting us, because I knew we had to earn the trust. Brian and Brandon, when we and Mary, there had already been relationships, but when we came in the office and we're like, oh, we can do that. And we can do that. They were like, yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, we got it. We got it. We can get this one here. We can get that. They were like, And the more we showed up and the more we brought the resources, I think the more they put their guard down. Because we said, can you stay a few more days? Like, can you stay a few more days and a few more days? Because the people needed to see that we were not abandoning them. But by the time the Red Cross had to go, I think 12 or 13 days in, I think we had a system in place that was strong, and we were able to bring in a shelter partner now through the county that the county paid for. And we knew we had the school until the beginning of the year, that the people would not feel abandoned. This was a 5.5-week in place shelter event, and the Red Cross absolutely went through the first few weeks with us. But even though they weren't there every day after that, there was still that interaction, that case management, and that follow-up with the community. So while you're celebrating us, we're celebrating you. We're incredibly and eternally appreciative. We're very grateful. I think people had an opportunity to see another side of the Red Cross. It wasn't just kind of like this quick hit, come in and leave, but you stood, you stayed, and you stabilized. And we are, like I said, eternally grateful for your partnership.
Thank you, Mayor. The sentiments are the same from us. I think we have a short video with some footage from the response.
It's not working.
Oh, okay.
I'll send it out
Okay, we'll share. We have a wonderful video, I think, from the city of Mount Vernon, and we'll certainly share these slides with the group as well. I want to thank the panel for this incredible discussion, for telling the story of this remarkable operation, and for the enduring partnership we have with the city of Mount Vernon and with our partners in the community. Thank you again. And I know there are some people in the room who were part of this operation. If you want to just raise your hands, I want to acknowledge all of the Red Cross people who were part of this operation as well. Thank you very much.
I'm happy when Brian was able to go home long enough to get a haircut. He had a struggle with the haircut. You were always handsome, but while you're taking care of people, we have to take care of ourselves at the same time.
Thank you. Brandon.
Yes. First of all, thank you all very much. For the Red Crossers in the room, one of the reasons we wanted to highlight this is community mobilization in action. We keep hearing that term, it keeps coming up, and everybody keeps saying, what is it, what is it, what does it look like? You just saw what it looked like right there. Before we go, we have some gift bags, so please don't rush out, we'll have that. But before we go, our regional CEO, Doreen Howell, is in the room. Just wanted to see if you wanted to say a few words or...
This really, as Brandon said, community mobilization has been the focus for the Red Cross. How do we partner with government, with nonprofits, with churches, and work together to develop partnerships that will be more than just one disaster, as you were saying there. And so this is the example of, in the Red Cross we keep saying, the organic community mobilization occurred in Mount Vernon. That is the model for the Red Cross, for our region, and so we'll be partnering with you, and hopefully not in large disasters like this again, but this, what we've learned from you, what you've taught us, what the clients have taught us, is going to really help propel community mobilization for our region. So thank you.